going to close today with a panel entitled How to Get More Revenue with Fewer Customers. Is our panel ready to come on out? Because I can start introducing people. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and introduce people one by one. I'm going to go ahead and sit here. So, Chris, why don't you come on in? Chris Sheridan, the head of strategic partnership sales at Weebly. Let's give people a round of applause as they come in. Thanks, Chris. Wilfried Beeck, CEO of ePages. Wilfried, come on down. Todd Robinson, president and CEO at Boldgrid. Can you come on out? Thank you, Todd. Thank you. And Bogdan Moldovan, VP of Sales and Professional Services at Axigen. Thank you, Bogdan. I want to call your attention to one more person before we get started, and that is my associate, Pia. Do you have the box? I want to show them the box. So I'm hoping that during this panel, I've got some questions for our expert panelists, but I'm hoping that you guys might have some questions too. And if you do at any point, you can just raise your hand. Pia right here has this box. It's called the catch box. And she's been practicing like all day of tossing this thing. You know, got a good spiral going. And so like, just raise your hand if you've got a question. She's going to throw you the box. There's a microphone in it. You just hold up the box and speak to it, and then you can throw it back. Very fun. So hopefully somebody's going to have some things that they want to know, and you can be a part of the conversation that we have here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today. I think this is a very good way to close out our day here in the .NET Arena. The first question I really want to know is, let's start with the second part of the title. Why would somebody want fewer customers? Anybody want to take that one?
Well, it's a great question. Well, I think the first answer is some customers are expensive. I think, you know, one common definition of that is if you're selling someone a free service, like a lot of free services are included in our business, right? Where a lot of us do services for free. The level of support you'd want to get involved with on the certain customers can be intimidating because you're not making any money off of them necessarily. So you might want less customer. You may not want to be as huge in that model. But I think honestly there's certain types of customers where there's a limit to how far you can go with them, and that might require you sunsetting that product and only focusing on higher value packages. And I think that's how really the definition evolves. There's been some packages that were the big funnel that created a lot of leads, and then you determine what the profitable packages are, and you start to sunset, you know, the others.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that. And something that is kind of exciting to see right now for the hosters out there is that the unlimited is starting to come off of the mass, you know, matrix that's on the pages now, and starting to go back to disk space limited packages, which is great because it stops that having to design for this huge user that is totally outside of the normal metric. And yeah, that's a great case when you can stop having to, you know, you got your $7.99 customer burning, you know, 4 terabytes of disk space. Let's get rid of that. Stop doing those unlimiteds, and it's like a real practical case of where that's actually going to force that to occur. That's very exciting to see.
Do you gentlemen think that that most companies have a deep understanding of the true cost of servicing their customers on an individual basis or on a product basis?
Yeah.
There's another thing that I would like to add here.
Of course.
When it comes to looking at hosters, they are different type of hosters. Some of them, they focus on servicing bulk accounts. Some of them, they focus on servicing SMBs. Now, they have done so in the past using a certain organizational skill set. So if you take a look, and if you would imagine a matrix of 2 by 2 with low and high value customers and low and high value low and high margin customers, and you would plot your customers all over the place, okay, clearly everybody would want high customers, high value. But as Jamie Oliver said, there are 2 types of quality assurance in things. You have fast food, where standardization is key, and then you have the Michelin restaurants, where customization is key. And with a certain skill set that you have in your organization, you cannot service all quadrants. So basically, it's looking at your customers, segmenting your customers, but also looking inbound to see what type of customers can you serve. And matching that gives a further insight into what customers you might want to leave or what customers you think they are in your sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that takes you probably to the next question you were just saying, which do people really truly understand the cost of the customer? And that stuff is, of course, it's really, really hard. I mean, you have all these things. You have depreciating assets that are going on. You might be selling different product lines, and your affiliate is telling you, no, I only want to pay you one CPA, but I'm going to sell your shared VPS and dedicated. Well, then how are you going to provision that cost? And who's going to actually bear that cost in your product? I mean, you have to figure out, of course, are you actually structured financially to be able to see costs of your hardware or in your data center, or even in your R&D, like in your dev team? Your dev team is your shared resource, so how do you actually figure out which ones of your product lines actually are you going to allocate that cost to? I think it's really hard, to be fair, and I've worked in really large organizations, large hosting companies that have to deal with that, and we never did it great either. So I can say it's a hard challenge, but it is definitely one that you need to take on, because it'll help you, as time goes by, it'll help you see not just which ones are costing you a lot, which ones are making you a lot. And as you get better and better with that financial control, you see both sides of it. It's really kind of the same thing, and it just opens the door both for the kind of the average revenue per unit chase that you're doing, or lifetime value work that you're doing, as well as seeing the cost.
Yeah.
So if you as an organization goes on a journey of trying to make sure that you've got enough data to understand who are your high-value customers, who are your lower-value customers, you still have the question of, do you actually want fewer customers? Is it, because this is a tough market right now, do you actually get to a point where it makes sense to, in this market, say, I'm trying to get rid of this pile of customers, the lower-value customers?
Chris, when we go back in the hosting industry, I think we've all experienced that in the beginning we were all in land grab mode. We wanted to have as many customers as possible, and we've made some great deals to win as many customers as possible. But customers not always stay where they are. So ideally they develop over time. So somebody who started with a domain or a website, develops into a different customer power user. So I think the first thing that we all should be doing is, and we've done that with a BI tool, we've segmented the market and looked at the installed base. And so the first thought was, okay, how do we, what type of customers do we have? We all know in the hosting industry we have sleepers. We don't talk a lot about those people, but we have them. And we have power users on the other side, people that cost us more money in servicing them, supporting them. And so making sure that we clearly understand how many types of customers do we have, like 5, 6, or 10 types of customers that we define, and then running a BI tool over it and seeing how do these customer segments develop. How do people come in and develop over time, maybe, or they stay sleepers. I don't want to upgrade sleepers. Maybe that's to answer your question. Why do I want fewer customers? And in some cases, because they cost me money. They occupy disk space, or I have to upgrade them to newer versions and things like that. And it doesn't make sense. Plus, best customers pay most. They're willing to give us more money. I think we have a lot of customers in our customer base that would be giving us more money if we would treat them differently, or we would even know that they are power users. So I think this is a process that we should be looking at, because at the end of the day, we want, coming from land grab mode, we want to move into a market that's very profitable. And I think this is where we are right now, to look at where's the most profitable part of our business.
Yeah. I just think this question in general has driven a lot of innovation that maybe to some degree we take for granted right now. So, I think call centers to this day remain one of the biggest examples of this question, which is they were traditionally a cost center, and they were where you supported customers, and you weren't really excited when customers called because you were immediately upside down. And now, I would say call centers are not looked like that at all. I think, GoDaddy's a perfect example of someone that is using the call center to monetize all sorts of customers, right? And the whole purpose of the call center is first to upgrade, second to solve the problem, right? But the reality is, that's a pretty big that's a big difference than how the call center was being managed 10 years ago, for example. And I think the second thing is when you look at control panels today, I think they've really evolved. Like a control panel historically was a utility tool. I'm logging into my control panel, I'm managing my hosting, my domains. And then I think it clicked that, hey, a lot of our customers are spending a lot of time in this control panel. They're not reading our emails, they're not reading our newsletters, but they're sure as heck logging into this 2 times a week to do things. And I feel like when you look at control panels today, there's a lot of advertising in there. You know, there's a lot of promotions being run, and there's a lot of eyeballs flowing through those control panels. So, you know, I think like it's not that necessarily companies are trying to like reduce their customer base, but I think what they're trying to do is say, maybe for this entry-level plan, you won't get phone support, and now we know that's a big trigger because we get 12,000 phone calls a month or something like that, right? So that's a big way to get people to upgrade.
It sounds like you're
Yeah.
talking about trying to actively try to increase somebody's average revenue per user, or ARPU.
Yeah.
And that's a term that I think we'll probably be using for the rest of the panel. ARPU is
Yeah.
something that I think most people are interested in trying to figure out how to drive more ARPU for their customer. So if we're on a journey and we've decided as an organization that we're going to try to focus more on high-value customers and getting more customers into that high-value pool, and we're going to chase more ARPU. First of all, before we even get into some specifics or some suggestions on how to do that, what kind of a mind shift does a company need to take to shift into ARPU-focused mode?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, besides the financial stuff and setting yourself up, you know, you talked about business intelligence. I mean, you have to have somebody doing that, even if it's ideally a group that does like Office of Business Intelligence works. But for us, one of the big shifts is a cultural shift in marketing. You know, stop discounting. Like, it's not, okay, we're going to close some more sales, so let's trim, 20% off again at the end of the month. It's really shifting them to value proposition and making sure that they understand, what are those things? Getting marketing to use the product consistently so that they can start to recognize the customer journeys that are common, that the customers literally have to complete, and starting to say, oh, look, like this is important to them. I can see now why this is filling up the technical support queue of questions because this is important to them. And so that was a big driver. It's like a cultural shift to get your marketing team to shift away from discounting and to the value proposition.
Yeah.
I think that there is a trap in the average return per user definition, and the trap is in the average word, in the sense that you have, when you talk about averages, you have to carefully consider what segment of your customer base are you computing the average on. So if you compute, if you have a highly diverse customer base and you are computing averages over the whole customer base, you may fall into this trap, and that number may be misleading, because that average is much more insightful when you look at it in the context of your segmented customer base.
Okay, makes a good deal of sense. One of the challenges that I see in this space is we are trying to, as a series of web hosting companies, differentiate our products. So not only are we trying to identify the right metrics to figure out how it is to drive value, drive ARPU, we need to figure out specifically what we're going to add to our services, what we're going to, what add-ons, what additional products we may be able to bring to bear that our customers are going to find value in. And if you are trying to be unique and differentiate, it's going to be different for every person. How does an organization start heading down that path of figuring out what services to add on top of the ones that they've already got?
In my experience, I've seen a couple of service providers which kind of accidentally discover that in their customer base, they have a certain type of customers, specifically from the shipping industry, that they were highly loyal customers for this hosting business, and they didn't exactly knew how that happened and how it came about to it. But when they analyzed, they were doing something right in that industry. And I know the owner who then decided to get on the shoes of the shipping guys, of the boats, and see how it is that internet at sea is a real issue, and how enabling the seafarers to have internet on board, not only internet in the wide sense, but internet and email services on board, and being able to send an email and email platform on board to be able to queue the messages until it gets near shore in order to be able to send the messages and download new messages. And he discovered that that niche, for him, it does very well. So he somehow drifted very slowly, but this time consciously, into servicing that niche, and he built a business on this way. So about differentiation, it can come also in the form of luck.
Sure.
At least in this example, this is how it came about. And he now is in a niche pretty much dominating it.
Well, it sounds a little bit like luck and a little bit like seeing what is going right and then doing more of it.
Yes.
Which actually sounds like a great answer to me as far as as far as how to find out what products are out there, what things you can do to enhance your service. Now we're talking there about verticalization, and that's an important aspect of what it is we're doing, or approaching a vertical or a horizontal market.
Yeah.
I'm actually also interested in trying to figure out how to specifically pick the right add-ons. Just something as simple as that. I mean, you guys, a lot of you sell add-on services, right? Sure. Where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I still go back to, and again, everybody's kind of talking about, well, you've got to know your customer and you got to have some stats, and that is important, right? Like you do have to have that function of, what is the customer actually doing? If you don't have, you're not the size where you can afford a business intelligence team to do that. I always say this, like, go look at 100 customers that joined you like 30 days ago. And what literally is going on with their account, and look at if it's making a site, it's email utilization, it's is the site even running, is it a hello world, which is everybody sees that one, and look at where that segment actually is in the process, and you'll start to see, what are they using, and what are they using is what they find valuable. I mean, let's skip whether they got to utilization. That's a different problem. You should clearly mark that down if they're not making it. There's something in your process that is preventing them from doing that. I mean, some are never going to make it, but there could be things in your process that are preventing that. You need to follow that process and figure out what those things are. Make sure they're getting to utilization. But when they are, look at the things that they find the most valuable. And it can be simple as, are you charging enough for those things? Because if they're really valuable, like domain names, they're pretty resilient to raising prices. Because once you have it, it's yours, you're hooked on it, that's the way it is. If a customer is actively using email, this is super important. Maybe email shouldn't be free and included. Maybe it should have its own specific value proposition and be better because you're focusing on it. So when you look to add what you might want to add on, those things will help you to show you like what may be valuable. I mean, look, you had mentioned before the control panels that are out there. Plesk is adding lots of stuff all the time. cPanel is adding stuff all the time. Look at them. What are they actually putting in there? Because in a lot of cases, they're ahead of the game for us because they're getting these requests from various other organizations that may be moving quicker than we are or are focused more particularly on a segment. So that's what I can say is a lot of times you can go in and look there. You probably even offer something that you didn't know you did. I guarantee it, actually. And yeah, you look in there, see what they're finding valuable, what they're using, promote it, take it back into the marketing team and have them try it on an A/B. And if that turns over, that increases your conversion, then that's a path that you can repeat. And so you get into the habit of doing that, you'll be able to locate these things.
Chris, I think, again, the hosting industry has matured, and we see hosting providers of very different sizes, and we see the GoDaddies and one-on-ones of the world, and very large scale hosting providers, and they can afford to have support teams for many different products. But if you see like a smaller hosting provider, then you should think hard about whether you want to actually add all possible products that you could possibly add to your portfolio. So, for instance, with our product, there's a certain threshold where you can afford. You need at least a couple of support people to have a complex product like ours, or you need to push that support to us, which we do offer. Yeah, for smaller hosting providers, we offer support. But if you want one face to a customer, and you let's say you have like 10,000 customers out there. And they're all of all different types and of customers, then I could probably tell you that maybe only a few hundred would be wanting an online store. And can you sustain a business with support and everything and infrastructure for an online store if the maximum you can get is only a few hundred. And I'm saying, maybe you need to make that decision that you want to focus on e-commerce. Then you can. Yeah, if you become, credible for being somebody who hosts e-commerce stores, and there are some out there who only host a few hundred or few thousand, and who are very, very profitable because they charge more, and because customers know, this is where I get really good support for my online store, and I know for sure I will need that, and then they're willing to give you more money. So I think you need to make that decision. Do you want to focus on this? Do you want to focus on whatever websites or online stores or something that is different from the mass hosting providers? Then you can sustain a business by, even if you're smaller.
I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. You said, an organization like ours, and you started to describe the product a little bit, and it sort of struck me that we've made it this far into the panel without really talking about specifically what each one of the companies here does. And I think that that's fine. Most panels will go ahead and do an intro at the very beginning.
Wait a minute.
But this is a good part on our journey to stop and do a small just explanation of what each organization does, and maybe put it in the context of what type of organization or ideal partner you're here to try and meet. That'll give us better context to sort of close the loop on how it is, you guys are trying to help us figure out solutions for our businesses. Chris, will you start with that?
Sure. I'm with Weebly.com. Weebly.com is a do-it-yourself website creator company, founded in 2007. We have 43 million customers. We manage over 100 million websites, and we recently, 2 years ago, launched our reseller channel, Weebly Cloud. And so we have 250 resellers on that platform and about 9,000 design agencies. And we're at WHD, to meet our existing partners and recruit other resellers for the Weebly Cloud business.
Great.
Yeah, I'm Wilfried Beeck. I'm the founder and CEO of ePages. We're doing online stores, and we have 140,000 merchants using our platform, and we sell that white label, almost all of them through the hosting industry. So companies like Strato, 1&1, Host Europe, they're partnering with us, reselling our products under their own brand.
Great.
I'm Todd Robinson with Boldgrid. I'm the new kid on the block, for sure. So we're a relatively recent addition to the marketplace, and we're really kind of two things. We're the first kind of like holistic website builder on WordPress. And so hosts will sell it in that way. So if it's a new customer coming in looking for a website, they can sell Boldgrid as a website builder. But it's also a suite of the most commonly needed features and functionality for WordPress users, whether power users or just kind of day-to-day users. And we've combined that into a group of integrated kind of like work processes and fields to basically make their lives easier and smoother and shorter. So again, the new kid on the block, and we're out here meeting existing partners, supporting what they're doing, and then really trying to look to discover what other hosts, how they're implementing it, and how they see a partnership would work with us.
I'm Bogdan, Moldovan. I'm a managing partner in Axigen Messaging, and we are an independent software vendor, and we have a product, an email platform product that we developed full stack in-house. The company has been founded in 2003, and the first version of the product was released in 2005. Our product scales and has a high density of mailboxes per hardware unit, if you want. And we help service providers bring a little bit of premiumness and agility when it comes to modeling email packages. What you said about having the capability of fine-tuning each and certain individual email hosting package, whether it is storage-based, whether it is feature-based, whether it is usage-based, if you want, although I haven't found anybody charging for usage of email. So that's us.
That is great. And I appreciate you guys doing this with me. I've never actually done intros in the middle of a panel, but we took a nice journey to get there. Before we move past our interlude, I want to again say that I would love for anybody who has questions for this panel or any individual on the panel to go ahead and raise their hand at any time, and we'll throw something at you. Okay, as I move forward with every question, I'm going to pause for like 10 seconds and see if we can get at least one hand at some point. So we'll really try for this audience participation thing, but we can't force it. So the market has changed tremendously in the past few years. I mean, it's a cliche to say we're in a post-AWS world, but it's taken a while to sort out exactly what it is that means. Do you guys feel as though the types of services that you are offering are helping customers differentiate themselves in a post-AWS world?
Well, the AWS example is, I guess the only thing I could really say to that answer is the interesting thing that I see in our channel right now is I definitely see a desire in our resellers to differentiate themselves. And I think in the website space, that is being done really well through things like hosts adding in custom apps they've built themselves into their own website creator editors and differentiating themselves on things like themes, especially in the international space where they're really signaling that they have a better solution because it's really localized for their market. But in general, I think we talked about like the marketplaces too. I just think, like you were saying earlier, Todd, like the rise of like cPanel and WHMCS, and then another one that we've seen really big success with is AppDirect. To me, that just really signals the desire to really, like for me, it's a focus of we know what products sell well in our company, and we're going to focus on these core products. So we don't have the energy or the resources to really do 1,000 other deals with SSL vendors, domain vendors, etc. And I think like the marketplaces are getting way more sophisticated too. It's almost to the point where a company is now telling people, we can't work with you unless you are in cPanel, or I can't work with you unless you're in WHMCS. And when you start hearing that, then you realize, man, these guys really got some traction there, right? So I'm just saying, I sense a real strong, going into this year, a real big focus on ARPU, a real big focus on differentiating ourselves and tripling down on those core products, right? And the gap's going to be filled by these companies like AppDirect and WHMCS,
I would like to add to that, we're not only post AWS, we're also experiencing, I think, a shift where our customers are looking differently at the hosting industry. Maybe they're not even looking at the hosting industry because they perceive other players as hosters. I often see that somebody like, even a Weebly or a Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, they're perceived from an end user point of view as a hosting company. So I think that's even creating a bigger difference maybe for us in the hosting industry. It's kind of like, I'm probably the oldest in this group, so I've seen many shifts in the IT space, and what we've seen in the 80s when, from IBM compatible PCs, it moved to, this is Apple and this is whatever else it was. So it's shifting away from something that was in the engine room in engineering towards something that is an application, that is really what people want to buy. And so maybe that is also what is influencing us here in the hosting industry, that we should be more forward-looking towards what we're really selling as a value proposition. It's not the engine room that we have. And
so I got an interesting take on it because quite some time ago, years now, I shared a cab ride with the lead engineer for AWS before they were offering it as like the public-facing offering. And as he was talking, pardon my French, I was like, oh shit. Like, this guy really knows what they're doing, and they have a serious, because they were using that within Amazon prior to turning it into a customer-facing product, right? So they had this great use case for, no, it needs to be cost-effective, because in the original, they were treating it as a cost center. So it's got to be super cost-effective, it's got to be reliable, because it's an e-commerce shop, et cetera, et cetera. And literally, I was like, whoa, okay, we're going to have some problems here. But what it drove me to was more business function oriented. These guys are serious engineers doing seriously good work and good business processes and good flow through. And what for me it meant to us as a host in my other part of my life is that we must emulate some of these other companies. Like we have to have R&D processes inside of our group, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're building something from the ground up. We're using research to tell us what are the products that people like, what are they doing with them, what's the value that they have. But one thing that I would just say to people, whether it's a small organization or you're a big organization, is you should have money in your budget specifically towards that function. It might be a group of people that are trying to tell you these things, making the use case to you, making kind of that case to say, no, you should invest some more money in this. We should get into WordPress managed hosting before everybody else does, because look at everybody using this, and they keep asking this of our technical support people. But you need a process within your organization to look at that information and absorb it and do something with it. So for me, it's really, those are the big players, and they think that way. And so it pays to emulate at least some of what they do in order to compete with somebody like that. Now, we're not on that scale, so it might just be like one person part-time that does this, but get it into a routine at your organization, and they will start to tell you really valuable stuff. And sometimes you'll act on it, and sometimes you won't. But get that routine down. That's like one of the biggest things for me that I look at.
When it comes to email, we are not only post-AWS, in a post-AWS era, but we are also in a post-Edward Snowden era. And because email is such a personal data, and I'm sure that all your mailboxes are several tens of gigabytes already, unless you deleted emails in the past. And you can imagine a future where your mailbox will be, if it is parsed by an AI engine, will kind of be able to pretty much replicate you. When it comes to email, our philosophy being an on-premise software, and yes, cloud is also on-premise, depending on what direction are you looking at, data territory becomes a true concern in certain areas. So email that is, let's say, for the hoster on-premise, and the hosters being willing to protect the data territory of their users, becomes a very important topic, and they need premium tools to be able, beyond just, the open source stack that everybody can and is using. If they want to truly differentiate their users, they need premium products that they can do that in their own data territories.
Great, excellent. Quick pause to scan for hands, and then moving on. Oh, do we have one?
We can't see you from here, but maybe you should.
Pia, I think we're ready with the ball.
Was there a question up there? Oh,
oh, is there not a question up there? Okay.
Giving up.
If there is, wave higher here. Yeah. Okay. Then let's go ahead and move on. So you were talking about how we're in a post-Edward Snowden world, and with your particular offering, there are certain segments who are going to find the way that you approach that very valuable. Now, to go back to when you were talking about the organization that found shipping companies as a viable market opportunity, right? Valuable niche. They're going to need email, they're going to need web builders, they're going to need additional services. Is there good coordination, partnerships, ways that various ISVs stack together in a product suite to go after specific vertical and horizontal markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, what we've seen, again, me being the oldest here, and maybe most of you haven't experienced that, but how Microsoft really killed the competition was when they created Office. A lot of people don't even think about that, but this is how they killed WordPerfect and Lotus and everybody else. All the world market leaders, and they were before that. Microsoft was only second or third in every market, but by creating the Office suite, they killed everybody else. And I think this is something. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're trying to integrate our products better now for real, solutions for SMBs. and making it a lot easier. And of course, today it's tremendously easier than it was maybe even 5 years ago, because everything is built on REST. We all have REST APIs, and we can plug all these things together and create more valuable solutions for the customer base. And here at the show, we've announced, sorry to mention that while you're here, but we've announced a partnership with CM4All, that we have integrated the CM4All website builder directly with ePages, real deep integration, so that people have a seamless user experience. And I think this is an example of many to come, where we would like to integrate deeper with peers in the industry.
That's great.
This is why the App Center, I just come back to it, is bigger than just a page where you're recommending people search for services they like. And I think like the changes that we're seeing in the apps, so the App Center, to your point, is a major way to partner with people, right? It's a way to quickly get the services to market, quickly notify the base that they're available. Ideally, you're going to hit your daily download rates, you're going to drive stickiness, people are going to renew, and the cycle continues. But the reality is that I think like what's really happening with marketplaces is it's not good enough to point people anymore to like a marketplace. It just what really needs to happen is kind of like how Amazon does their recommendations, right? Which is people come through your onboarding flow, they're signaling to you through whatever they're buying from you, what kind of business they're in. I'm a restaurant, I need a website, I need email, blah, blah, blah. Okay, because he's a restaurant, you can recommend 3 apps to them, right? And we're starting to see that, this recommendation of, oh, you're a restaurant, here are these 3 apps. And then if those apps really start doing well, it almost starts to present the business case to you that, hey, we should do a deeper integration with these guys. We should bring them deeper into Weebly because it is getting adopted a lot. Clearly there's a need, right? Customers like it. And it starts to kind of build this business case that we should do more with this company than we're doing right now, than necessarily limiting them to the App Center. And so, I think the partnership piece is super critical on that side. But then I also think as I think that, a lot of the kind of deals have really, some of the deal making in that place or in those sort of discussions can be all about cost. Just give me the best cost, blah, blah, blah. And I think the folks that are getting it right are realizing let's do a deal that drives growth. What's the best, I'm willing to put some skin in the game financially here. If we can figure out a way to really drive meaningful growth and onboard quality customers that we think will have a high renewal rate. I look at the domain business as a business where that was like a pure cost business. Just give me the best price for com or whatever, right? And it's that's the wrong way to look at the market. Maybe that's right for domains, but it's not right for a lot of other products, right? Yeah. What the focus I've seen has been more on, let's do a deal that really drives growth because I'm looking to kind of gain X amount of customers. So. And congrats on CM4All, by the way.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of witnesses that you just said you want to integrate deeper with products like ours.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did.
I can all confirm that.
Is that a deal?
Someone tweet that out.
We can talk later.
Kind of building on some of what they were talking about in some earlier questions about, how for us we're really targeted after. Certainly integration comes up, but we're really targeted after making a smooth process for customers to be able to use it. So we've got a couple integrations now coming out. Plesk is one of our partners, so any day now that'll show up. Softaculous is now running us inside of there. But we're doing that to address the host's journeys that the customers are going on, right? Yeah. So it's how do you get in there the easiest way possible so that they can get past any of that setup time and build. And I know, particularly for you guys, it's that's a huge focus for you. Get them right to there so they can start engaging and getting tied into the product. But rewinding it back to kind of ARPU and how do you integrate multiple products together or sell multiple things to a customer. For us, on the hosting side, we're organized in product line managers. And so the product line managers are responsible. They're financially driven. They sit on that side of the revenue side of the house, but they also sit on maybe part of the service delivery side of the house. But they're individually responsible for those different product lines. And so they're the ones that are driving the marketing people. Do you know my product? Do you know my pain points? Do you know what I need to change? Have you used this yourself, and can you push the features and functionality you found useful back up top into your marketing material? And the more that we see different hosts that do it that way, the easier it is for us to sell, of course, because in our case, we're selling into the host that is doing a lot with WordPress or is trying to service the new to the web people. And if you have that type of organization, you know the people that you should be talking to. They see the value very clearly, but they also know I could charge for this. So it's not so much like how cheap is this thing going to be good? Is this thing going to work for me? And that's what we found is when you get that engaged with the customer, where the customer starts to see, wow, they make this product great. You know, I mean, our email should be better. You know, like that's for sure. Almost everybody's out there should be better. But then they start to trust that you are delivering this high quality product, and it makes the process of selling them the next level up, or selling them more of what they already buy. That's a common one that hosts often forget. Like these people often, you know, journeys of freelancers is they start with one, and then they start to buy several. Then they buy some more. Then they may buy something big and consolidate down again. You're like, okay, don't consolidate that back down. But then you know what? 2 years later, they've now purchased something even bigger, or two of those bigger things. So that's what I say is, I guess when you're thinking about how you organize and grow and pick these new products, is you've got to have somebody that really knows that particular customer and knows that product line to know what features and functionality to add to it.
When we vendors decide what to integrate with in order to maximize the product offering to our customers, to hosters, providers, we are kind of missing on one key element, which is the fact that hosters, being closest to their customers, if their product managers know the customers that they serve, they should know better what to package in their offerings. So giving that trust to the customers and giving the tools that they are able to use to integrate whatever they choose to integrate, empowers them for a much more tailored offering. For example, another hosting that we have in Belgium, they have a product that they have built in-house, plus they use certain software, and they are only servicing the insurance industry by giving the insurance agents, the tools that they need, both for email, document management, as well as meeting planning, exactly for what they need. So again, servicing a niche can get you at having high value customers that bring you high margins.
That's great. And as we wind down, you know, let's build on that. We are chasing high value customers who bring you high margins. We brought up the concept of trying to drive ARPU. I'm going to close us on this a very quick discussion of something beyond that, which is talking about the lifetime value of a customer. Chris, you talked about, is it going to get the renewal?
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things I heard from every panelist was, I guess it's gotten a little cliche, the idea of stickiness, right? But an idea is somebody's going to be with you if you try to service their unique critical needs. So I guess what I'd like to do is very quickly, in like a sentence or two,
Sure.
if there's a way that you guys can sort of boil down, how do you get that stickiness and address customer needs?
Yeah, very, very simply, retail business, our marketing budget is the free plan, period, the end. That creates the biggest funnel, creates the biggest number of conversions. And 2 years ago, actually about 2.5 years ago, we pulled the trigger and opened up a big call center in Arizona, 100+ agents, because that is a big focus for us now. Is we took all the time to recruit these folks and bring them into the system, and we're big believers in that support model of upselling and making sure people, like you were saying, Todd, hit that publish button. That's what we want them to do.
Great.
If they hit the publish button, that lifetime value starts to really happen.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Plus, I think lifetime value is not like a statistics, just statistics. It's not like, you know, my lifetime value or, you know, the average is 4 years that people are staying. It's very different. Some people leave after a few weeks and and others stay for 10 years. So you need to find out, segment your market, and really look at, who are the guys that have potential for staying for 10 years, and then focus on that, what makes them stay for 10 years, and what really makes them stay is, whenever they're successful. Like in your case, it's publish.
Right.
In our case, it's selling a product.
Right.
How can I get them to sell the first product?
Right.
Because that is proof of concept. Once they've sold one, they can sell many more.
My take on lifetime value is, it goes back to that example of if you got 100 customers, go look at them 30, 60, 90 days in, and you're going to start to see that utilization. And if you don't see it, if you see the hello world stuff, call us. We'll take care of that. But just look for that flow. That's the earliest part of the whole thing. I mean, certainly lifetime value, you need some years under the belt to actually model it out for you, and you need somebody smart to model all those things correctly out for you. But really, look at the first part of the customer relationship that you have. Make sure your customer experience is smooth, make sure they get the utilization, and have somebody look at that in a rhythm periodically to be sure that it's still like that and you're learning from it.
I think that, and I want to build on Todd's answer, that the struggle with renewals doesn't start 1 month before the deadline, but it starts the first day after the renewal was executed. So in this regard, taking care of your customers on a daily basis and servicing and understanding them. I mean, if you have the option of sending your engineers and go and see the business of your customers, that would be ideal. Hardly possible in real life, but understanding the customer in that sense, organization-wide, not only at executive level, would be a huge value.
That is wonderful. Well, so we started out trying to answer the question of how to get more revenue with fewer customers, and I think that our expert panelists really drove us towards some answers. So I'd like to get a quick round of applause for this panel, if you guys can stay seated for a moment. Thank you very much for that.